Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 and verse 1. The prologue of the wisdom of Jesus, the son of Sirach. Whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and the prophets, and by others that have followed their steps, for the which things Israel ought to be commended for learning and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without, both by speaking and writing. My grandfather Jesus, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and other books of our fathers, and had gotten therein good judgment, was drawn on also himself to write something pertaining to learning and wisdom, to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things might profit much more in living according to the law. Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them, and not only these things, but the law itself, and the prophets, and the rest of the books, have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. For in the 8th and 30th year, coming into Egypt, when Euergetes was king, and continuing there some time, I found a book of no small learning. Therefore I thought it most necessary for me to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it, using great watchfulness and skill in that space to bring the book to an end, and to set it forth for them also, which in a strange country are willing to learn, being prepared before in manners to live after law. All wisdom cometh from the Lord, and is with him forever. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh. In the name of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi, grace and mercy be bound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that have believed on the gospel of Yahawashi Hamashiach and have received of the Holy Spirit, in which we are able to have understanding in these times and be given power from on high, that we may be able to overcome the evil that is in this world and seek after righteousness in this present life and in the world to come. Wanted to go into, this continuing series just concerning, the Bible translations, just for brothers to have a good understanding, especially for you brothers that are, learning and reading. Many times, brothers may come across videos where different doctrines are being promoted. And sometimes these doctrines that are being promoted are, heretical in nature. They are not of the truth. And many times it happens because people are trying to misinterpreting doctrine according to what they feel it should be, without going through the proper steps of dissecting the word and scriptures the right way, and also following certain scriptural trends that are always consistent, that go back to the Old Testament, the law and the prophets that had prophesied concerning different things that would happen and how they would happen, and the importance of it happening in the which the Lord had said. Partly we're going into this is concerning, part of the whole, virgin birth controversy. As we know that this is a big topic, one of the biggest topics in, all of so-called Christianity. And some of that has actually seeped into the whole Israelite community. And, just coming from a standpoint of knowing people that have fallen victim to, the belief in the virgin birth, once somebody goes into that level, it's hard or almost impossible for them to recover. And I'll tell you, over the years, I've spoke with different brothers that have fallen into the belief of the virgin birth. And, no matter how many times maybe you bring it to their attention about the danger of getting into it, a lot of times, some brothers will not listen, will not take heed. And, as time progresses, you see these men, go full back into the world, or begin to take on other various false doctrines that pretty much destroy the whole purpose of the gospel, which is for the salvation of the elect of Israel. Okay, so, I'm going into this because I wanted to show brothers, kind of the origin of some of these things, but I have to kind of do it piece by piece. This particular lesson was inspired by, going into, the original tongue and seeing some other translations that actually try to, I guess you can say, interpret the best way possible in modern language or in modern English to the readers to have a better understanding of what the scriptures was trying to say. Now, as I said before, the King James, the 1611 King James, is the most consistent and the most accurate of the translations from just reading of various translations. However, there are other translations that do come close and actually can sometimes give you a better interpretation due to the way people think and speak in modern times. Okay, so one of those Bibles in various verses, maybe even chapters, I've seen that has shown a level of consistency somewhat is the RSV, the Revised Standard Version Bible, or they later came up with a newer version of it known as the New Revised Standard Version. It is something that I've used before just to go through comparative text in terms of translations dealing with the Apocrypha. So this is, there's a lot of different reasons why one would probably look into that, is because one, the Apocrypha is not something that it has a lot of sources. So sometimes using a different translation, you can kind of do a comparative analysis of what is being said or how things are being said. And these things in no way are meant to contradict one another. It's nothing more than just basically somebody, expounding on it in their own way in a modern terms. For example, you could be reading something in the King James to somebody. The way it's being said is being spoken in an old English that was based on, early 17th century English. And a person in the 21st century may not fully understand what is being said. And then what do? You go and you interpret it the best way you can to them in modern tongue to give them a better explanation. So that is part of the reason why you see sometimes these other translations come up. Okay. And then also, when you go into the background of some of these men that did these other translations, when you understand their motive behind it, you see that their motive may have been more sincere than maybe some of these more recent translations that are coming up. And also some of the things that they translated garnered a level of controversy. Okay. So, for us, we, the ones who are seeking after the kingdom of heaven, we are the ones who the Most High will give the better true translation and understanding of this doctrine, even more than these scholars of these times. Okay. So the Most High makes the wisdom of this world foolish. Okay. So we have to be the ones that have to seek out the learning and the wisdom from the Most High for him to give us that understanding, that we may be able to give a better and more perfect interpretation of these scriptures and the breakdowns, the understandings of the prophecies, and the understanding of what is the best way to live according to, the word. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to briefly show you what the version that I was talking about just in Wikipedia, just to give you the history. This is from the Revised Standard Version. Okay. And this particular one was published in 1952. Now, one of the guys that was actually ahead of this, who's actually considered one of the foremost translators of the 20th century, who specialized primarily, who did go into the Hebrew, but he was very strong in the Greek. He was one who is considered one of the people who really brought forth some understanding of the scriptures that were based more on ancient viewpoints of those times of these particular words. Okay. And a lot of times what happens is when these guys go into these translations, especially the ones that are really trying to get it right, they're looking into how were things spoken in those times in terms of the word usage, meaning a particular word, what is the way in which that word was frequently used during that particular time when that particular man would have wrote it. And this gives you an idea of the scriptural context of some of these particular verses that were translated. All right, so now one of the controversies concerning this one was the controversy of Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and go into it. It says here, the Isaiah 7 and 14 dispute and impact. It says the RSV New Testament was well received, but reactions to the Old Testament was varied and not without controversy. Critics claimed the RSV translators had translated the Old Testament from a non-Christian perspective. Some critics specifically refer to the Jewish viewpoint, pointing to the agreements with the 1917 Jewish Publication Society of American Version Tanakh and the presence on the editorial board of a Jewish scholar, Harry Orlinsky. Such critics further claimed that other views, including those regarding the New Testament, were not considered. The focus of the controversy was the RSV's translation of the Hebrew word ilama in Isaiah 7 and 14 as young woman. Okay, which we're definitely gonna get into this. So it says here ilama, and it says alma in Hebrew translates as a young woman of childbearing age who had not had children. Okay, so had not had children, and so may or may not be a virgin. Okay, so what we have to understand is that they had to go into the historical use of that word ilama in the language that it was spoken with and how they used it based on other literature and writings of the times that would show how that word was used. Now, for example, a man can go to the store and he can meet a woman, okay, and he can come back, tell his friend and say, hey, yeah, when I was at the store, I met this young woman. Okay, now that young woman could be not the known man or a known man, or have had children or not children, right? So that's a very vague, that's a more of a vague explanation if you just say young woman. Now the word alama has an actual consistency in the way it was used back in those times versus another word which we'll get into. Now if a man goes to the store in modern day times, which we can 2022, and he says he was at the store and he met this virgin, we know in 2022 what we call a virgin is a woman that had not been with any man, had not known man. Okay, so now when we go into the New Testament, we see a word usage that varied even during the times in which it was used back in 1611 when the translation of the New James was completed. All right, so we have to factor in what and how were things said in different time periods, because words do have some level of evolving over time, and this is known throughout many words. There's so many words that we use today in the English language that if you used them 50 years ago, it would not even mean the same thing just 50 years ago. Okay, so we have to understand that even over the course of 100 years or 1,000 years, 400 years, whatever it is, things can be changed over time to mean or interpret something else. Now, as we go on, it says the Greek language Septuagint, written 130 years before Yahawashi or Jesus, rendered Alma as Parthenos. So they rendered this word, okay, all right, as, so Alma or Ilma, okay. Now this right here in the Hebrew is Ilama, okay, that's how you would pronounce it, Ilama. And they say Alma as Parthenos, okay, and which translates as virgin, and this is the understanding carried over by Christians. Okay, now it says here, of the 7 appearances of Alma, the Septuagint translates only 2 of them as Parthenos. virgin, including Isaiah 7:14. By contrast, the word bathwala, okay, appeared some 50 times, and the Septuagint and English translation agreed to understanding the word to mean virgin in almost every case. So it shows you that there was more of a consistency, okay, with this one. 50 times in almost every case they used the word virgin, but in the 7 times that this word alma showed up, only two times did they use the word virgin. Now, you're going to see that as we actually go into, the actual precepts, because I'm going to show you the actual precepts in the King James and in the RSV to show you the change in that text, and then we'll go into the actual word and the historical breakdown of how it was used, okay? So it says here, the controversy stemming from this rendering helped reignite the King James only movement within the independent Baptist and Pentecostal churches. Furthermore, many Christians have adopted what has come to be known as the Isaiah 7:14 litmus test, which entails checking the verse to determine whether or not a new translation can be trusted. So what they mean by that is, whenever a new translation comes up, Christians that are looking to get a Bible, what they'll do is they'll go to Isaiah 7:14 to see how was it translated. Meaning, if the word virgin is there, they're cool with it. If the word virgin is not there, they're not cool with it. This led to many people rejecting the RSV and the NRSV because of the use of the word young woman in those translations. Hence the reason why you later on had the NIV, the NASB, and the NLT. If I'm not mistaken, probably has, which we'll be able to double check, I believe, the NLT on here as well, using the word virgin versus young woman, and that has been the controversy concerning that. Now, this is the thing we have to ask ourselves: why would they put young woman instead of virgin if the interpretation is actually virgin, if that's what people are saying it is? Because the word there that's being used is different. And we're going to go into the other word so you can see the reason why in those other cases, the 50 something times that the word bathwala was used, you'll see the reason why they use virgin in almost pretty much every case, which means at a higher rate they use that word. So let's go ahead and go into Isaiah 7:14. This is in the King James. We're going to go ahead and read it. It says, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." Now, let's go ahead and go to that word, behold, a virgin, right? All right, so there it is. Okay, so Ilama, which you saw the word Alma, is how it was also written. Now it says here that the word there is used 4 times for virgin, 2 times for maid, 1 time for damsel. It says a virgin, a young woman of marriageable age, maid, or newly married. Okay, or newly married. Now look at this. I'm going to show you how this is used. Now look what they did. This is from the book by R. Lard Harris, Theological Word Book of the Old Testament. Okay, now look at this. Now this is one of the reasons why they had to put this here, because if I'm not mistaken, over the years, if you probably watch old videos of brothers breaking this stuff down, and I believe I may have an old video, so I'll go back and check and see. I don't know whether or not this is, I know for a fact this wasn't always there. This right here was not always here. I'm pretty certain of it, that this right here, this explanation right here was not always here. This was added later. And anybody who knows, like, if you've ever been on the Blue Letter, you'll notice sometimes they'll actually have like shut down for maintenance for like a few hours, and they'll add some of these things in here. Same thing with the Blue Letter Bible app. They'll have updates, and a lot of times in those updates they'll add stuff like this in the Blue Letter Bible app. So that's the reason why we have to always say, you have to understand the language, you got to understand the doctrine. If you understand the true doctrine, you can know whenever it is they're trying to throw things in there to offset the true doctrine. Now, look at this. Additional information from the outline of biblical usage. There is no instance where it can be proved that Alma designates a young woman who is not a virgin. Look at that. And mind you, why are they putting this in here? The main reason why they're putting this in here is because the truth is Israelites have been breaking this stuff down, and they've been coming at this word many times. Okay. And you're going to see what I'm talking about when we go into another source that they have on here. Now, look. The fact of virginity is obvious in Genesis 24:43, where Alma is used of one who was being sought as a bride for Isaac. Okay, now let's do this. We're going to go down and we're going to go to the Jacinius Hebrew Chaldees Lexicon. Okay, now the Hebrew Chaldees Lexicon, what a lot of brothers and sisters need to understand is that the Israelites are descendants of the Chaldeans. Okay? Abraham was a Chaldean by quote unquote nationality, and then later the Most High made him a nation, okay, that came out of him, which was the Israelites. That line goes back to our Faxad. So the Hebrew Chaldees Lexicon connects the ancient languages even prior to our identity of being Israelites, or the creation of the nation of the people of Israel. Okay, so the good thing about something like this, the Jacinius goes into the usage of this language group. Now remember that Hebrew as a language was spoken by various peoples, and other versions of Hebrew, or you can say dialects, was spoken by other groups of people, including Syrians, Arabics, the other nations that lived in the land of Canaan, whether they be the Canaanites themselves, the Edomites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Israelites. Okay, so they can actually go into the other groups' sources of their old ancient writings and see how words were used during those times to signify the way the word should be interpreted by definition. So let's go ahead and look into this. Okay, so as we saw the little quote that came from Harris, look at what it says here. Now this is for the word Ilama. It says, of the preceding, a girl of marriageable age, like the Hebrew, or like the Arabic, or like the Syrian. So it goes into the Syrian, the Arabic, the Syrian, and the Chaldean. Okay, of that particular word, because all these groups use these particular words as well in their language. Now it says, and then it has the Greek as well, and we'll go into some of the Greek as well, but this time we're really trying to focus mainly on the Hebrew. Now it says, by which word the Hebrew Ilama is rendered by the LXX, which just is the Septuagint. Okay, and it goes into the different word usage. Okay, and then let's see here. It says Genesis 40:24-43. Okay, which this is the same one that they quoted concerning Rebecca. All right, being married off or found to be a wife for Isaac. Now it says use of a youthful spouse recently married. Now look at this. Now peep this. Use of a youthful spouse recently married. And then it references Isaiah 7:14. Okay? So this Isaiah 7:14, when it says that virgin will conceive and bear a child, this says it's of a youthful spouse recently married. That is how that was the interpretation of how it was being used in Isaiah 7:14. Okay? Now let's go further on and let's see if there's anything else in here. And I'm gonna actually bring another precept now that I thought about it to kind of show you who that youthful spouse that was recently married was. Okay, what does married mean? It doesn't mean one that is has had an actual wedding. Okay, an act has to take place in order for one to be recently married. Now, let's see here. See the note at the end of the art. The notion of unspotted virginity is not that which this word conveys. So meaning the word alama, okay, which is the word here, does not, the notion of unspotted virginity is not that which this word conveys, for which the proper word is this. This is bathwala. Okay, bathwala. Okay, so the proper word for an unspotted virgin, meaning a woman that had not known man, is bathwala. Okay. Now it says, and in Isaiah and in the LXX have incorrectly rendered it. Okay. This word here is actually parthenos. Okay, so in the Greek, this word right here, they even said in the Hebrew Chaldeans lexicon that the word used when that was interpreted in the Septuagint, which is the Greek Bible that was written 130 years before Yahawashi came, okay? Because yes, we had another translation, the Greek Bible, which the Apostle Paul would have definitely had. He would have had the Hebrew, okay? And he would have had a Greek Bible. And when they do a comparative analysis of the text, the word parthenos was incorrectly used when breaking that down. And I'm going to show you that word parthenos, okay? So that's the reason why it's important for brothers to understand, if you want to get into interpretation, you have to be able to know these characters. This is the Greek, this is the Hebrew, and you got to know what each character, it's not going to take you long to learn, but it's good to know it. So when you see some of these words, you can sometimes figure out what it is. If you can know like 6 of these characters, you might be able to figure out what the word is in the Greek, especially if you run across it. So we see here that this word was incorrectly used, and we're going to show you what it's referring to. You know what I'm saying? We're going to show you what it's referring to. Now, neither does it convey the idea of the unmarried state, as has of late been maintained by Hegensteinberg, okay, but the nubile state, okay, nubile state and puberty, okay, meaning a woman that had already reached the age of puberty, essentially. That's really what it means, okay? See comment on Isaiah Loke's site in the matter of virgins, okay, with the virgin voice, sharp, soprano. Let's see here. Let's keep going on. Okay, so this is it right here. It says, note the object in view in seeking to undermine the opinion which would assign the signification of virgin to this word is clearly to raise a discrepancy between Isaiah 7:14 and Matthew 1:23. Come on, man. Let me read that again. The object in view in seeking to undermine the opinion which would assign the signification of virgin to this word is clearly to raise a discrepancy between Isaiah 7:14 and Matthew 1:23. Nothing which has been stated does, however, really gives us any grounds for assigning another meaning. The ancient versions, which give a different rendering, did so for party purposes, while the LXX, which is the Septuagint, who could have no such motive, rendered it virgin in the very passage where it must, to their minds, have occasioned a difficulty, meaning that they had a difficult time being able to find the word to interpret in the Greek for that word ilama, which is what I read earlier in the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 1, that sometimes they fall short in their interpretation. Okay, now remember, the Septuagint was written in Greek. The Sirach was written in Hebrew originally, but it was later interpreted in the Greek, so that way those that are in a strange land, those that were in these Greek-speaking places that were Israelites, can have an understanding of the wisdom that is found in the book of Sirach. And that's the reason why he let it be known beforehand. Forgive me if I fall short on interpreting this the way in which it was really meant to be interpreted fully in the Hebrew, which is a language that has a certain level of power compared to other languages. That's why he wrote that in there, to say, hey, I may fall short of the full power of the word because of the words I have to use in this other language to interpret this for you. Okay, so meaning that what the Gesenius and Hebrew Chaldees Lexicon authors understood is that the Septuagint authors did not purposely try and mislead the people by putting the word Parthenos inside of Isaiah 7 and 14 when they were translating Isaiah 7 and 14 from Hebrew to Greek. They understood that. That's why we have to understand that today whenever we're going through these same interpretations. Now it says here, Alma in the Punic language signified virgin. Now, by the way, the Punic language is the Phoenician language. The Phoenician tongue is the language of Canaan, which is also the same language that the Hebrews speak. Okay? So that way y'all understand what the Punic language is. As Gesenius rightly states in the Thesaurus on the authority of Jerome, the absolute authority of the New Testament is, however, quite sufficient to settle the question to a Christian. Okay? So basically meaning that a Christian will use the interpretation of the New Testament over whatever the Old Testament Hebrew would say is the original way in which something should be meant. Okay, and that's what a lot of so-called Christians do. That's why you have a lot of people that really don't want to deal with the Old Testament in the original tongue, or deal with the precepts that lead to one another in terms of what's being used, which we'll show you here. So now let's go back into this Isaiah 7 and 14. So when we go back to Isaiah 7 and 14, we're going to go ahead and look at these other Bible translations. So let's go here. We already showed the word ilama being used, and we see here the King James Version. Now we're going to go into some of these other translations. I talked about the NLT. It says here, all right, then the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. Now let's go on. Remember how we said that the litmus test was this Isaiah 7 and 14, hence the NIV saying the same thing, the virgin. All right, the ESV, the same thing, the virgin. All right, so let's go ahead and go on. I also referenced the NASB, okay, which I had owned many years ago. I think I bought an NASB Bible probably 18 years ago. It's going to say the virgin. This is the 95 version, the virgin, okay. Then let's go to the RSV. Okay, now the RSV, this particular one was written in 1952. There's an NRSV, which I believe was maybe written in 82, if I'm not mistaken. So, and the same guy, Bruce Metziger, was the guy who headed the translation of that. And he and that particular committee, when they went back, understanding the old Hebrew language in its original tongue and the word usage, just like we read in the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldees Lexicon interpretation, behold, a young woman shall conceive and bear a son. Okay, so now remember they referenced the other verse, okay, which was used. Let's go to Matthew 1 and 23. And this is where they use that word Parthenos. Okay, so when the Greek Septuagint was translated, and they were translating pretty much what is now known as the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah, they used the word Parthenos going back then. So we're talking about 130 years prior to Yahawashi coming, the word Parthenos is used. Remember, this is very important because That particular Isaiah 7:14 was a prophecy of what was to come later, meaning that the Septuagint was written about 130 years before Yahawashi came, and that interpretation of the Isaiah 7:14 was written in mind for those that were Greek speakers and readers that were Israelites to read the Bible in the language that they best understood. Now, knowing this, I'm gonna do another part, Lord willing, and we're gonna get into the feelings behind the apostles and those after that time and what they felt about Yahawashi and his origin, right? So when you go in here, this same Greek writing would have been similar to what you would have seen in the Septuagint, which is where they would have been interpreting the Hebrew into the Greek. Now we go here for virgin. This is Strong's G39 33, and the word there is parthenos, which is the same. If you look at that same wording that I showed you in fact, I could probably see if I can go back to it, so that way we can, let's see. Let's go back to that so you can see that same word again, and you're going to see it right here. Okay, so you see 7:14, it says here that the Septuagint have incorrectly rendered it parthenos, and this word right there is parthenos. This right here, this is the same word that you're seeing right here. Okay, parthenos. All right. Now, and that's how they interpreted it, the biblical usage of that virgin, and this is what threw a lot of people off. And this is really, to be honest, it became a stumbling block to many. Okay, and then they go into the breakdown of it, the Thayer's Greek Lexicon, which is the other lexicon which people use as a source. This is one of the sources that they use a lot inside of the Blue Letter, the Thayer's Greek Lexicon, and they go over the word usage, all right, throughout the scriptures, and we will go into some of that as well, Lord willing, in the Greek, dealing with this word and getting a good understanding of it and how it was used, and also dealing with other aspects of the actual gospel doctrine concerning the birth of Yahawashi, how he came into the world, and what was said in the New Testament concerning him. All right, so now what I want to do, we want to talk about that Genesis 41 or 24 and 41, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go back down to it. 43. Let's see. In fact, there might even be another one up here. Okay, yeah, 16. Let's look at 16. Because they did reference 43, but I'm going to show you this one in 16. So, it says here, and the damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin, neither had any man known her. Okay, now the reason why I'm using this is because this right here defines what a virgin is. Okay, now remember, the word Ilama is a woman that's young, of marriageable age. It is nubile and had reached puberty. Whether the woman has no man or not, she can be referred to as Ilama. Now, this word is used, virgin, and it actually breaks down what a virgin is. Now, if you brothers understand, just the whole use of the comma, which is an isocolon. A comma is used a lot of times to slow someone down that's reading, to also get an understanding of a particular subject. In this case, the word virgin is the subject, and then the explanation and understanding is there. Now, many times if you read the Bible, what will happen is something will be said or a word will be used, and then right after that, a definition is given. And this is found many times throughout the scriptures if you pay very close attention to commas. okay, colons and semicolons as well, which are known as isocolons. All right, and it's very important if you're going to understand the scriptures, you need to understand what rules are being used in literature, okay, to understand and better interpret what you're reading. Now, it says here, a virgin, neither had any man known her. Now, let's see if that word is ilama. That word there is bathwala, which is exactly, okay, what the Hebrew Chaldees lexicon that goes into the original usage of these words talked about. All right. Now let's look for that word bathwala. This right here says the notion. Now, mind you, going back to the word alma, which is the Strong's H5959. Okay. Now it's saying what is an actual virgin. It says the notion of an unspotted virginity is not that which the word conveys, for the proper word of what? An unspotted virgin, meaning a woman who is truly a virgin and had not known man at all, okay, or had not laid with a man at all. That proper word is bathwala, okay, and that's what this is, bathwala. Now let's go back. Let's look at that word again, bathwala. All right, exactly what it's saying. All right, and that means, let's use that colon, that semicolon, or that comma, the isocolon, to break it down. A virgin is what? A woman that has not known man, okay? So a man had not laid with her. That is a definition of a virgin, meaning bathwala, not ilama. So hopefully, this was edifying to you, brothers and sisters. And again, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.